Most times the market is incredibly boring. We are not super hot, we are not super cool, we're simply just in no man's land. But sometimes situations do get extreme. And extreme situations, I believe, justify extreme actions. And one of those extreme actions can be to sell the best asset you have, right? It can be selling Bitcoin. I personally still believe that among the major asset classes, Bitcoin has the long-term highest expected return. But at the same time, I don't want to have 80 or 90% of my entire net worth in an asset that can drop by 70 or 80% if it is hyped. On the flip side, if we are currently in a major depression, I believe it does not just make sense to buy Bitcoin with your monthly cash flow. I believe it makes sense to really double down. After you've already crashed by 50, 60, 70%, maybe it makes sense to even sell some of the stocks and buy Bitcoin. Maybe for some people it could even make sense to take out a loan to buy Bitcoin that low. Simply because there's so much volatility, because the ups and downs are so massive in crypto, it might make sense to ride the waves, to not just hodl forever. Now in this video, I want to talk about an indicator that is quite popular within YouTube that I rarely talk about on this channel. And this indicator isn't too bad actually to time the macro cycles. What we have over here is the monthly relative strength index of Bitcoin. Sometimes it's low, sometimes it's high. And when we compare this to the Bitcoin price over time, we actually get quite good signals to when potentially buy and when potentially sell. And so, for example, according to this indicator, we would have bought here at the bottom, January of 2019, when Bitcoin was just $3,000. And then we would have sold over here when Bitcoin was at $60,000. Isn't that impressive? And so the buy signal was triggered again in December of 2022. Again, very much at the market bottom. But here's the potential issue. We did not yet get a sell signal. And we have actually seen this very similarly before. Have a look at 2019. This ride from 3.5K to 60K wasn't that smooth. If we zoom in over here, we temporarily saw a drop in the Bitcoin price by more than 70%. This here, by the way, was the COVID crash. The price wasn't that low for a long time, but still, there is massive volatility even in an overall bullish market. And so then that opens the question, right? Are you okay with potential 70% drops over those cycles? We haven't hit the green yet, and the RSI did not give us a sell signal, but we could just see another buy signal. We could potentially fall back to what seems to have been historically the floor, which, by the way, right now is at roughly $32,000. So that's a drop from the current price of 47%. Are we going to see a drop like this? Your guess is as good as mine, but I'm personally at least prepared for this. In case we do see a crash in Bitcoin, I can sell some stocks, I can sell some long-term government bonds, I can sell other assets in order to take advantage of the drop. If you have 80% of your wealth in hyper risky meme coins and Bitcoin drops by 50%, then your meme coin portfolio might go down by 80% or 90%. And if you then don't have any money in other asset classes, you cannot take advantage of the low prices. You cannot buy Bitcoin or even your meme coins that low. Nobody knows where prices are going, right? But we can always play the probabilities. If you own a casino, you also don't know what the end result of the roulette table will be. But you do know the odds somewhat, right? You do know that the odds are in your favor. And so you're willing to play the game over and over again. Now, I believe the art in trading and in investing lies in trying to figure out those odds. It's not necessarily trying to predict prices. It's not necessarily saying that Bitcoin will be at 100K in a month or two. It's actually trying to find out how likely are we going to go up from here or down from here? Because we cannot know what the next big whale will do, right? Will the next big whale accumulate or sell and then depress the price or push up the price? We have no idea. But we can look, for example, at the average cost basis of the market, or we can look at what was historically a good bottom if the market structure stays the same way as it used to be. And so drawing random lines like this, of course, might make sense. Looking at monthly RSI indicators might make sense. I personally am rather a fan though of using on-chain data, of not just using price data, because we actually have much more in crypto. Crypto is an open ledger, and so we can have a look at what point in time did the last Bitcoin move? What's the average cost basis of the market? How much short-term speculation is there versus long-term speculation? And I believe those kinds of cycles are even more accurate than simply just looking at the velocity of price changes, which the RSI is measuring. This needs to go to 1 million, or March buyers now will make millions. This is how you get the clicks on YouTube, but this is not how you beat the market. To beat the market in crypto, you need to be better informed than the rest. You need to be better skilled than the rest. You need to do better blockchain analytics. You need to track other people's wallets and know what is the smart money doing. It's the boring educational content that forms skill that doesn't perform so well on YouTube though. That's why I created the premium membership. Feel free to check it out. We are tracking influencer wallets to find out what they are buying before promoting this on YouTube. We've got a lot of tutorials to help with on-chain analytics, to help with wallet discovery. And of course, there are also plenty of chats where we help each other, and also one-on-one conversations with me. So I'm messaging every premium member one-on-one directly. Once you're joining, you will get a message from me and you have the opportunity to directly pick my brain. Feel free to check it out, thebitcointrader.com, link is down below. So this is one of my favorite models. This is the market value to realized value Z-score. You can find it in Bitcoin Magazine Pro. Simply just search for MVRV Z-score. And whenever the price is below the realized price, or in other words, when the black line is below the blue line, it's time to buy very heavily. Whenever we are above, it's a bit more tricky, right? Then the question is, when are we taking profit? Currently, we are not dirt cheap in Bitcoin. The market on average is roughly 2x in profit still. Another thing I like to look at is the realized HODL ratio. So how much speculation is there between the short-term holders and the long-term holders? When the short-term holders tend to trade a lot, this tends to be high. When the long-term holders tend to take over, this tends to be low. And so it makes sense to always buy when it's mainly the long-term holders that dictate the price move. Because the long-term holders tend to hold longer, thus the supply, the liquid supply shrinks, thus the price tends to rather trend upwards. And of course, vice versa. Short-term holders simply just sell whenever there's the smallest wick possible. And right now, we still see a lot of activity by short-term holders, and we see the market in aggregate still being in profit. And so I believe if we see a bit of a dip in the Bitcoin price, we could turn bearish rather quickly. It's simply how I interpret the data. Your interpretation might be different. But this then begs the question, how can we protect ourselves from a 70% drop within a bull market? If overall the prices go from 3.5K all the way to more than 60K, but within that price action we have our 70% drop, is there some way we can still sell high over here and avoid this drop? The monthly RSI would not have helped us, right? The monthly RSI did not register any heightened levels. The realized HODL ratio would have failed us as well. That was also not very high. And the market value to realized Z-score was a bit better, but still nowhere near the red area. Very similar to where we are currently, right? We are not in a super hyped phase, and so we would simply just keep on holding. But have a look at this. This indicator went quite high. This is the value days destroyed. This looks at what are the long-term holders doing? When are they selling? And it didn't flash red, but it definitely was way higher than a lot of the time prior to that peak. The VDD is one of my favorite indicators. It measures at what are the long-term holding whales doing? The people that have a lot of Bitcoin that normally don't move their Bitcoin, are they suddenly moving their Bitcoin? When they do, when the typical diamond hands suddenly become paper hands, that's when the VDD goes up. That's when I personally also tend to sell. When the heavyweights that are long-term investors sell, that's when we've got elevated levels. And that would have given us a hint to potentially take some profit even in July of 2019, when we subsequently saw our 70% drop. And this also gave me the hint to sell very, very close to the recent all-time high, because I sold when this flashed red in the second week of March. And since then, the price action hasn't been too great. And so as a little proof, here's the video where I announced that I sold Bitcoin near the top on the 14th of March. Because I believe it's more important to find the right exit opportunities. It's also harder compared to finding the right entries. Because finding an entry is relatively easy, because most of the time prices tend to be depressed, right? Over the long term, you can very often buy close to the floor. You can simply just accumulate and buy and buy and buy. But at these high prices, right, at the elevated prices, we tend to be for much shorter periods of time. For how long can you really sell at these elevated prices? Just for a few weeks. And if you're lucky, maybe 2 months. But there is many months where you can buy close to the bottom. And so in this current market, I bet on falling prices, especially of the altcoins. I believe the altcoins will be hammered even more because it takes a lot of new money to enter the space for altcoins to actually outperform Bitcoin. Most altcoins underperform Bitcoin most of the time. And so we can simply just bet on most altcoins to not do that well. You don't have to bet on the US dollar valuation to go down. You can bet on the relative valuation to Bitcoin or to Ethereum to go down. If you want to know more about that concept, feel free to check it out. It's thebitcoinstrader.com. The link is down below. This is where I share all my trades. If you've got Telegram, feel free to join the public channel. It's 100% free. Looking very much forward to chatting with you over there as well. Cheers.